Hello and welcome. Today's project is all about another health anxiety story of mine that I really want to share with you. And I see it with my clients, but before my clients, I saw with myself that my anxiety stemmed from a certain behavior, from a certain pattern, or from a certain moment, and going back to the moment and taking that apart, but also adjusting that behavior, adjusting that habit so that it ripples upwards into macro goals or macro values. So you can think of these macro goals as having these roots that stem down into these micro habits. And when you start to change these micro habits, it ripples upwards into what are you a good person? Do you feel good? Are you spiritual? Are you mentally stable? Are you grounded? But also, are you a good husband? Are you a good wife? Are you a good father? Are you a good mother? Right? These macro goals are really abstract. So it's important when you're going through anxiety recovery to dig deeper into the unconscious, learn what the unconscious is all about, why, habits are formed in the unconscious and why they stick, why our unconscious loves to regulate itself and do the same thing all the time, right? So let's get into this health anxiety story. Now, there was a period between my ex-partner and then my relationship with Maggie where I was on Pleasure Island for a long time. I was engaging in impulsive habits and behaviors. I was going over to my friend's house, smoking weed, watching movies, eating junk food. And yeah, that's good for a period of time, but it has to die off somewhere, because going into my mid-20s and avoiding work, going on dating apps and engaging in sexually impulsive behaviors to fulfill this underlying desire for connection, it only caused a lot of snakes, right? More snakes was accumulating. And it's only when you become more aware of the habits that are causing negative outcomes is when you can begin to shift those behaviors and start to break them apart. So what I mean by that is that when I started to realize, oh wait, engaging in sexually impulsive behaviors on dating apps is only producing a lot of snakes. Like, what if she gets pregnant? What if our emotional feelings get affected by that? Her feelings, my feelings. What if I get a sexually transmitted disease? Like, all of these different things. And also going, I would say, betraying your ethics and moral values is a big part of that too. So all of these snakes stem from one bad habit. So at this point, when I started to see Maggie and I was still engaging in those sexually impulsive behaviors, I realized and came to the forefront of my own malevolence in my own heart, because I was seeing Maggie at the time and I was still seeing other women at the time. And that went against my morals and the ethics that I grew up on, my beliefs. I believed that if I'm committing to something, to not cut any corners. And I cut a corner. I betrayed myself, but also Maggie, because, I was starting to commit myself to her and really connect and engage with her. And then I was still engaging in my past where I faced the malevolence of my own heart. And that's PTSD. That's a big chunk of PTSD. A big chunk of PTSD is confronting someone else with malevolence, but also realizing the malevolence in your own heart. And that's what happened to me. I couldn't believe what I did. And then I started to focus on one of the snakes having a sexually transmitted disease, and that being a UTI. I never had any sexual, as far as I know, sexually transmitted disease, and I didn't have a UTI, but I thought I did because, well, based off of the experience that happened to me, and that led me to the obsession over a snake stemming from that experience. And then that became my obsession going forward, where I was, going over to Maggie's friend's place. I was sitting there on the couch, and her friends and her were talking, and I was quiet most of the time because at the top of my values hierarchy was UTI. I thought I had it. I thought, because partly was my anxiety response was continuously active after this confrontation with my own malevolence. And since my anxiety response was active, my body was tense all the time, producing a whole host of sensations, but also I was producing the sensations I was feeling down in my privates, where I was feeling certain sensations down there that Googling it, I came to the conclusion, oh, it's a UTI, and so I was unable to solve the issue, and that's why I was at the top of my values hierarchy. I was constantly obsessing over it, because there's obviously that's all I was aiming at, right? You see what you aim at, and that's all I was aiming at. And so while I was at Maggie's friend's place, I got up, went to the bathroom, just ruminating and obsessing over this ailment I thought I had. And then I went back, and then after we left, and so relieved that we were leaving. And also, when I'm in those social situations in the past, remembering them and remembering how anxious I was, I also remember thinking, well, they probably think I'm strange. They probably think I'm weird. And so that I was just beating myself up, beating my self-respect up so much because of these thoughts that I was having. But anyways, after I went to the hospital to get some answers, because that's what health anxiety sufferers are trying to do, the doctor came in and said, we checked everything, and this is like 12 at night. Everything checks out. You're good, but I'm going to give you the medications for the UTI anyways, because I came there saying I had a UTI. He said no, but here are the medications anyways. And this left me confused and even more bewildered, because I felt how I felt, and I strongly cemented this belief of having this thing, but I didn't have it. And this made me even more overwhelmed, because if I don't have it, what do I have? I could be this, it could be that, it could be like any other hundreds of things that I searched on Google. And so this snowballed more into my severe health anxiety. Now, what I really want to talk about is, ever since then, I never went back to those sexual impulsive behaviors that I did before, because I started to chip away at that aspect of my personality, or to dig a little deeper, that specific habit. And what I was chipping away at was, well, what did I learn from this experience? Well, I learned that I went against my morals and my ethics, and look what happened. Look what it cost me. It cost me to be in this anxiety response for a long period of time. But also, when I started to chip away at it and change the habit, that habit rippled upwards into my personality, and I started to see myself as a different person. But you have to chip away at these little micro habits. Quit caffeine, for example. It's a little thing. Or clean your room. It's a little thing. Or delete those apps. And man, it could be avoid those negative friends, and at the same time replacing them with new habits, and those will ripple upwards, right? And because of that experience with PTSD, it threw me into severe anxiety because that one snake was just too much, because there were already so many snakes within me that were not dealt with, that were just too much chaos in my life. So if I was suffering from too much chaos, that one little snake, in that case that wasn't a little snake, it was a big snake coming into the glass that was already full, it just overflowed, right? And at this point, I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know my future. I didn't know what to do about my past. Like, all of these problems came up, and all of these problems, including the snakes of, did I get a sexually transmitted disease? What if she gets pregnant? All of these. What if Maggie finds out? All of these different things came up. And so these micro actions, they benefit the you of tomorrow and a week from now and a month from now, because there's going to be a future you. So it's important to really dig deeper into what are the things, the small things that you're doing now, and how sacrificing those small things can better the future you tomorrow. And lastly, I just want to say that it's been 7 years since I engaged in those sexually impulsive behaviors. And it was through realizing that I was longing for connection, but also I was afraid of responsibility. I was afraid of challenge and going beyond myself. And anxiety recovery was the challenge I needed to be more aware of myself and these underlying impulsivities that we all have, and being more aware of, well, what can you do to handle these desires, these energies that arise, and where can you project them, right? And so for me now, it's meditation, it's exercise, it's journaling, it's breathing exercises, it's through connection with Maggie, it's through connection with family. There's other ways to channel these energies, right? So it was through this horrific moment that it was really what I needed in order to kill off the parts of me that weren't working, these older programs that they weren't working for me. And they were only causing me more pain, and it causing me a lot more snakes, right? And it was through this burning off and rejuvenating new programs that would ripple upwards into the larger values that I really needed to attain, and I really deep down wanted to attain, because I was always longing for a different way of being, right? A different way of living in this world. And that's where I'm going to leave you on today's video. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you are interested in one-on-one coaching, please go to unpluganxiety.com and you can view all my coaching options there. And lastly, do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on the next video or podcast. Bye for now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be one of the first to know. Namaste.